we were talking about last week, these wonderful workbook lessons and those early workbook lessons that are all about unlearning the mistaken thought system we've built up. And the second half of the workbook is all about relearning the truth or reaffirming the truth. And to me, when I heard that NPR episode about mindfulness training, I thought, isn't that interesting? The Course even tells us that as we begin this process of detaching from the world, and we discussed this last week in the text section, we were talking about detaching from the world and reattaching to the truth, there's kind of a disorientation process. Now, see, I would think that's kind of what they're talking about with this dark night of the soul or this seeming darkness that we go through. But when you recognize, and the Course even says it's short. You may experience this, but this does not last long if you know that you can take the hand of God. You are constantly reaffirmed. That's why you get that first paragraph that says, hey, look at you. You're doing so good. You're right on the lawns of heaven. You're right at the gate of heaven. It's almost there. Goody you. You know, we're the cheerleaders out here with the pom-poms before the game. You know, we're Spirit Week before the game going, you know, it's the Super Bowl's coming up and all we've been doing is saying, yay, you know, and then the actual process takes place. And we realize that we are not alone. And that's what this is talking about. It says, accept this idea, and you get to go past all of this. You have a security underneath you, a security blanket, you're like the man who's built his house on rock instead of on sand. You know, you have a solid foundation underneath you. You can move past the anxiety, the pits of hell, the darkness, the blackness of depression, the thoughts of sin and devastation that are brought about by the misunderstanding that you believe that you are guilty, that something has gone wrong, that you've separated from your source. Accept today's idea, and you have released the world from all imprisonment by loosening the heavy chains that lock the door to freedom on it. You are saved, and your salvation thus becomes the gift, and this is said over and over again, the gift you give the world because you have received. This is, again, one of the constant themes you hear in the Course. You give this to the world the moment that you receive it inside yourself. Because this isn't like, oh, I've got to give it to the world. How do I do it? Do I find somebody? Do I find you? Do I stand on the street corner and, you know, preach the word of the Course? Do I call up all my friends and tell them I'm a Course student, and as I bless you, I'm releasing the world? No, you don't do that, because as you do it, all these minds, the Course is constantly telling us we're releasing the chains that have been placed on all the minds that are out there. Right, because my mind has been released. And what do we share? There's only one mind, even though it seems to be splintered into many. It's the old hologram. You know, it seems like there are many, but within the one is the whole. And that's a hard thing for our egos to wrap our minds around. But what this is constantly reaffirming us is, even whether you can understand this or not is not important. The fact is, truth works, and your understanding would be nice for you, but it isn't necessary. You know, like I've said before, I don't really know how an oven works, but if I put food in it, it cooks. You know, that I know happens, right? The same thing is true for us. We may not understand how this can release other minds from chains, how this can transform the world, but it works. It does make a difference. And because it does, our understanding is not really necessary.